Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Healing Heartbreaks Summit. Today we have with us Sarika Jain. Welcome, Sarika.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. So a little bit about Sarika. She is a love and relationship coach for smart, successful women who have it all except a loving relationship with a life partner. Sarika uses a personalized and holistic approach to partner with women to break through painful relationship patterns, heal their hearts, learn relationship skills to attract healthy, joyful, and loving relationships. Her unique approach combines many healing abilities, conscious relationship skills, and mastery in online and offline dating. She has been called a relationship sorceress and love magnet and modern day alchemist. Very cool. She's known for releasing hidden blocks, freeing the path, and finding love. So, and she herself, a little bit about, and which she'll share more, but she also went through a broken engagement and was able to find love just 3 months later. So you can find her work in Connects to Coach, Stand Up for Passion, Gotham Media, and Today's Leading Women, just to name a few.
Mm-hmm.
So again, thank you for joining us. And we're really going to be talking to Sarika about how we understanding these hidden blocks, which she is really what she's an expert in, and how we can move forward, because without identifying these blocks, we can't allow ourselves to move forward from this heartbreak.
Mm-hmm.
So can you kind of, to start off with, can you kind of share with us your transformation story from, you had a broken engagement and then, ending up finding your next partner?
Sure. So, I kind of have a traditional South Asian women professional path where I studied engineering as an undergrad, and I did my MBA, and I was working in management consulting. And at the same time, I was looking for my life partner. Being of Indian descent, just finding a marriage partner was like a top priority. And I've always believed in love. Like, I've always loved being in relationships. So kind of like when I was 28, 29, I was like, okay, I really want to find my life partner. I'm going to take this seriously. So I took courses in dating. I read tons and tons of books. I'm sure most women listening to these calls probably read every book on dating. And I just became really great at it. And so I started coaching other women in how to date from an self-empowered perspective.
Yeah.
And I met a wonderful man. And interestingly, everything was going great. And then a year later, we got engaged. And then a month after we got engaged, he broke up with me. And he told me I had deep-set psychological issues I still needed to sort out. He said I was too controlling, that he couldn't trust me, and that I kept my close ones away from me. Like, I would keep people at a distance. So he told me all these things, and I was completely shocked and mortified that the man I was going to marry told me these things. And he just left. Like, he was living in a different state by then. And I just went home and I cried.
Yeah.
And that night, a voice came from my heart that said, I need spiritual healing. And Vinny, I had no idea what that meant, being in the corporate world. And the very next day, I met a spiritual healer, and she looked at me, at my energy, and she said, well, it looks like you're a toxic mess, and your heart and your sacral chakras are blocked.
Yeah.
And you will keep attracting the same situation over and over. You're a magnet for heartbreak. Unless you take drastic action now.
Yeah.
So I just plunged into it. I spent the next few months just deep cleansing, self-love, self-compassion, healing, closing my Xfiles, which we'll talk about, and just finding a new lease on life, like just having my awakening moment of like, wow, like I am so much greater than these societal expectations of what I should be doing with my life and who I should be and who I should marry. And it was just like, I just love being me. and if I meet someone, great. If I don't, great. Like, I just want to have a good time,
Yeah. Yeah.
And around that time I got into meditation and yoga and spirit, all that stuff. And I met a great guy in my meditation group, and him and I just started seeing each other. And at that time I started dating other men too. But I kind of just did it in a very different, conscious, mindful way. And a few years later, I married this wonderful man. He's now my husband. His name is Christian. So that's kind of my story. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I like how you took action after, this engagement was broken. Obviously, let alone a breakup, but a broken engagement is, kind of a whole other level, a ball game there. And how did you make sure that, this stage, you're not going to let it control you? Because many people, they let the situation control them, and they kind of get stuck in this hamster wheel of rejection, victimizing themselves, saying, I'm always attracting the wrong guys. This is all me. So how did you make sure that, after losing this person in your life, that you're going to take matters into your own hand, and kind of describe your transition journey, and what kind of support did you seek, and what kind of personal development activities did you engage in besides meditation that really helped you?
Sure. So, I've gone through so many heartbreaks, and I was reading a statistic, at least in the UK, on average, everyone goes through at least 2 heartbreaks before meeting the one, right? So heartbreak is part of our journey of dating and finding love. I have always had this deep, dark spell after a breakup where I would drink and just just let go, just let all my addictions come in, and I would be in bed for months. And then some sort of fire would kick back up in me, and I'd be like, oh, this isn't so bad. So I always had a coping mechanism, and it was always my, I call it kind of like my egotistical front, which is my smart, successful side, which is like, okay, I'm going to read through this. I'm going to, I'm going to do what it takes to pick myself back up and get back out there, because I'm self-empowered. I think the difference for me this time was I really experienced a surrender. I worked with a coach, which is kind of why I do what I do now. Yeah. And I just kind of surrendered to a process that I hadn't even heard of before. And that surrendering really included forgiveness and self-love, self-compassion. And these were exercises. These were practical, experiential things that you couldn't read in any book, So I would say at a very high level, that was kind of what I experienced.
Very interesting. And I like how you said you surrendered. That's something that my viewers definitely can take as a great advice, is sometimes you just have to surrender to something or a process, and, wholeheartedly go into that process and see what it does for you, because it is hard. And, if you, let's say people say, hey, go journal, or go for yoga, meditation. It can be easily said, but I think until you surrender and just give it a chance, really, and see what it does for you and document what it does for you. And I think that will go a long ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that if you're willing to listen to life and let life be your teacher, and not let your mind take over of what you should be doing, and, just, let go of your goal-driven side and just tune into your body, tune into your higher self, just go through the grieving process. Many of us don't, and we'll talk about catharsis in a second, but we don't go through that process. And so we get stuck somewhere in the middle of that process.
Okay. So before we talk about catharsis, what are some adversities or challenges that women who are going through a heartbreak, they should be ready to face?
Yeah.
In your opinion?
You mean immediately right after a breakup, or?
Yeah. It could be either right after or even during. There's women listening who are also going through this, smack dab in the middle of maybe they're 6 months in and they're still not feeling their best selves. So what are some challenges that they should, be ready to face and just expect? Because, heartbreak is not, obviously it's not a simple ride.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the lens of someone who may be going through heartbreak or, beginning to experience it. So, there's 4 levels in which we are in a relationship. There is the physical, energetic, emotional, and spiritual. So it's almost like there's 4 layers for each of us. And even within a relationship, there's 4 levels that we're engaged in a relationship. Now, what I've noticed is that usually when there is a breakup happening over a period of time, each layer just starts releasing itself, So maybe a person will start like emotionally spending time with something else or someone else, or energetically, or, and then finally it becomes the physical, the physical shells of 2 people who are still trying to make a relationship work. So what I would say is like, where are you in that spectrum? What are you holding on to? And also one thing that I've learned is that it's all about values. Like, what do you really value? And I feel like every breakup that I went through, that was the question I was being asked. Yeah. What do I value in my heart? Because I can have a perfect relationship on paper, which has been usually the case, great looking guy, like tall, successful.
And women love to lift that down. So that,
and
especially women.
Well, it's so easy. It's like, what could go wrong? But I'll tell you, Vinny, in my last breakup, I just had so many values that I had to face head on, and I was losing all of them. Like one of them was, money. Like we didn't agree on money. He wanted to be filthy rich. I didn't really care about it. I wanted to lead a more like bohemian life, and it just didn't match. I wanted to bring in spirituality. He didn't really want to. Like we just couldn't bring it into our life. I was vegetarian, and I didn't mind him not being vegetarian, but during our wedding, we couldn't come up with a menu together. It was just like basic things. And I tried to muscle through them because I was like, we're engaged, we're 2 good looking, so-called successful South Asians, we can make this work, and it was not values driven. It was not authentic. So what I would say to women is, or men, is really evaluate, like, are you living your values? Is this relationship allowing you to live your values and be your true self? And if you don't feel authentic in the relationship, then you know what, like, yes, breaking up is hard, but it's better to be alone and single and open to possibility than being in a relationship that feels like a jail. Like, and that's what a bad relationship feels like. It feels like you're in a jail, but it's safe.
Yeah, very true. And that's a great question to ask is, again, like Sarika mentioned, what do you value? List really your values out. Look inside yourself and see if your values are aligning, in this relationship you just got off of, or, you want to get off of. So going from that, I want to go into talking about denial, since we are already talking about, like defining our values and everything. So many times we, we tend to get stuck in our heads and, make false assumptions like, no, it's not over yet. We will get back together. This has to work. And I see so many people, they're stuck in their heads that this will work, and they spend months after the end of a relationship trying to fix it. So they waste their, energy, time, and it might not be wasting, but this is what they do. So what are kind of the signs and symptoms of this denial phase? I call it denial because I see it as denial from a third person. And how can we kind of identify that, we are in this phase?
Sure. So, I want to just say something. Most people that I quiz, or, who take my survey, I have a love magnet quiz on my website. Most people are still not over an ex. They still hold on to some hope, or there's still some, like, something that hasn't been closed yet. And the denial phase can continue for a really long time, even when you're in another relationship.
Yeah.
Which I find really sad, and I remember myself like always holding some ex at some like higher level than any other guy that I would see. And I'm like, oh, but this guy isn't as good as this guy, So the denial phase, and I will admit it, I have bought books on how to get your ex back, how to text your ex, I've also been in that boat of wanting to make things work. And part of it is because once a woman gets emotionally and sexually invested in a relationship, it feels like love, and that's what chemistry does. It makes us feel like this oxytocin kick when we're with that person. And when we're not, it feels like we're missing something, a drug, that adrenaline rush. So, so what was your question? I'm sorry.
So how can we identify that?
How do we identify the denial phase?
Yeah.
So at first, denial is a natural process of catharsis. So I've shared, or what I normally share is that there's 5 steps to catharsis. Catharsis is what happens when we lose someone, or something tragic happens, right? Even like an earthquake. Yeah. Anything that completely shakes us up and where we lose something really valuable, we go through these 5 steps of catharsis. And the first phase is denial, like you just said. Then there's pain and guilt. Then there's anger. Then there's depression. And then finally there's acceptance, so it's kind of an emotional wheel that we have to go through. So how do you identify that you're in denial? Well, part of it is I think even while you're going through that process of, is he right for me? Can I get him back? All of those questions, what went wrong? First of all, like go through this inner journey of, journaling or again, working with a therapist or someone who can help you just identify for yourself what you felt during the relationship, what you needed, what needs were being met. And that gives you an idea of or it gives you the tip of the iceberg about whether the relationship was right for you. A lot of us don't even answer that question. Was the relationship right for us? We're not asking that question. We just assume the relationship was right for us because it felt good while we were in it, or while the highs were highs, So it almost requires us to take a step back, do some deep reflection. And then after we get over that denial, then we kind of get into the pain and the guilt part, allow ourselves to feel that pain and guilt that we had.
So what are, you mentioned, journaling and then meditating or finding a therapist. So some of these things that people, are interested in diving into, how can we make sure that this is, with journaling? I remember my first journaling experience. I was like, well, what do I write? Do I just write? Or, how do I dig deep into myself? Or even with a therapist, people see this person as a stranger. And so they say, how am I supposed to share my personal life with you and emotions when I don't know you? So what are some questions that we can ask ourselves, or, mindset, if we're going to a therapist, go into and, to really get the most out of this digging deep, quote unquote, situation?
Sure.
Or experience.
So I think I forgot to mention one thing. Usually friends are a good gauge of whether a person was right for you. So if you're open enough to talk to your 5 best friends and just say, hey, do you think that relationship was going to work anyways? And most of them will tell you the truth. But the thing is, a lot of our friends won't tell us these things because they're afraid we're just going to recoil or reject them, So if you're open and if you're strong, ask your friends first, your siblings, look at your own echo chamber and see what people who care about you really think, right? Because sometimes it's hard for us to have our own perspective.
Yeah.
The second thing is, in terms of journaling, There's a practice called morning pages. It's by the woman who created the Artist's Way. I'm just forgetting her name right now. But morning pages is where you just wake up every morning and you just do a dump
Kind of like
your
a
thoughts.
brain dump. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're just like writing stream of consciousness every morning for 3 pages, right? And just start doing that. Okay. And then in terms of seeing your therapist, I think the first thing that you really want to do is ground yourself and get back to your core. Like, take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Like, just start nourishing yourself. Regardless of what is going on with your ex. I don't think that every relationship is over just because there was a breakup. I think there could be a breakthrough and a reconnecting. But after a breakup, the first call of action is self-love and self-care. And that's where someone from the outside, like a coach, a counselor, a therapist, someone can just help replenish that. And then your decision-making and, like, was he the one for me? Like, how do I approach this? Then you can start addressing those things.
Yeah. And it's, you mentioned the whole, like, friends thing. And actually, for me personally, when I went to my friends, it's funny you said that sometimes they don't resonate. So for me, I didn't find my friends as helpful because I went, and it all depends on, how truthful your friends are and family. But my friends, they were just like, we thought you guys were going to work, or just kind of sugarcoat it. So you want to always be honest with yourself, with the people you're going to for help. If you just want to hear some sugarcoating.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. And that's something that I learned is, I actually kept going back to my friends because I wanted to hear that. And then I realized, well, this isn't really true. So ask yourself, where you're going, and are you going to them for honest reasons, or are you going to them just to receive a, sugar-coated response?
Yeah. And I think that's true about your relationships in general. And the way I view dating is it's all about relationships. And it's about helping us grow into more authentic people in all of our relationships, with our friends, with our family, and even men, right? So I think what you bring up, Vinny, is like, do you even have authentic relationships to lean on? Right? And a lot of us don't, because we don't build those relationships.
Yeah. And that's where that's where, the summit comes. It allows you to dig deeper into yourself and put out that authentic energy that you have, so you can bring authentic people into your life. And I see that for myself. So I'm sure you guys, you'll see it too.
Yeah. All your relationships will start becoming clearer,
Yeah. So the next thing I was going to ask is, as we close ourselves off, from love a lot, because from our next relationship, because we're scared to get hurt again. So how can we kind of identify that it's, this is a right time, this is okay now for me to move on, start looking for someone else, and open myself up to love again? Like, with your situation, how did you know that, it's safe for me to, look for love again?
Yeah. Well, I tell my clients that there's 2 times when I'm most afraid in the dating process. One is, am I really ready to get back out there again? So when I was just jumping back into dating again, I was mortified, right?
Yeah.
And then the second time I was really scared was when I was going to commit to my husband. I was like, oh my God, So yes, dating and love is vulnerable, and in itself, right? We're always going to be afraid of rejection and losing someone. I mean, and that's vulnerability in general. Intimacy in general is like that. Now the question is, how do you know if you're ready? I have a few diagnostics that I kind of share. I mean, one of them is about, do you feel healthy and nurtured within yourself? right? Do you have a healthy relationship within yourself that can withstand anything, a layoff, a bad relationship, a sick parent, because that core foundation has to be built no matter what. And now I'm not saying that a 22-year-old needs to build that right away, but at least start looking at your own ecosystem, and your own relationship with yourself. Then the second question is, am I over my ex? Can I really release this person and let them be happy? And do I really know what happened? And have I become a better person after it? Because usually that's what, breakups really call for us to do, is to become better people, learn our mistakes, learn new skills. I think dating and relationships require skills. Yeah. And then the third is am I happy? Am I authentically happy? Am I being authentic to myself? Do I know what I value? And 4 is, am I willing to date just to grow and discover more about myself, or am I dating for an outcome? I think when we're okay,
that's a good question.
My husband,
yeah,
it just puts so much pressure, and you're going to get hurt, because not every man you're going to meet is going to be the one, right?
Yeah. And I like that third question, because many times it's surprising if you ask yourself that, when we try to get into another relationship, especially if you feel like you see all your friends getting married and everything, that this next guy to get married, it's not the healthiest route to go, as you mentioned, because you don't know what's going to happen in the next relationship. So the best thing is just to identify, I lost my train of thought now. Just to kind of identify, what you want from this next relationship, but not the outcome. Don't focus on the outcome.
Yeah. Marriage is just a label. I mean, all of those are just external labels. And I like what you said is what do you want in a relationship? Forget about the whole picket fence and, all of those fantasies. In reality, what kind of authentic relationship are you looking for?
Yeah. So you have many courses on your website. So Sarika has many, many courses. She has stuff for finding your next love, on dating, and also she has a course that's called Closing Your Xfiles. And I like that. Can you kind of talk a little bit about, what this course is, and share with us the 4 steps to moving on from your ex?
Sure. So I have a lot of practices that I share within my coaching, and right now I have one course that kind of combines everything. Yeah. It's a 6-week online course called the Sacred Soulmate System. But within that, within my whole coaching, I have a step in there called Closing Your Xfiles. Although I have been thinking about creating it as a course in itself. And so what I offer are 4 steps to moving on from your ex. Okay. And what these 4 steps involve are, first, filling yourself up with self-love, self-compassion, and self-empathy. Really just nourishing yourself as a woman, as an individual. Okay. The second step is to go through the catharsis process. Now, I talked a little bit about what those 5 steps of catharsis are, but go through that process, express yourself, do emotional release exercises. And during my coaching, my one-on-one coaching, I can help people identify where those blocks or where that emotional baggage is in the body. And kind of using talk therapy, I kind of help release it. Okay? And I also provide people a framework for, looking at the last relationship and looking at all the incidents and understanding what you felt, what you needed, what you wished you'd communicated with that person, and how you were responsible in that situation for whatever happened. Okay. So it's almost like this, going back into your relationship, understanding what happened, releasing the baggage. Okay. And then the third step is about understanding what happened and facing your ex. Okay. So this is not about like calling up your ex and just yelling at this person and just hanging up the phone, right? Or begging them to come back. It might just even be a connection with his soul and having that authentic conversation about what happened, and learning, what does this person have to say to you, right? And I actually had that face-to-face moment with my ex, which, Vinny, I was so scared to do that, to be honest, because I was like, okay, screw him. I don't need to see this guy again, right? But there was a part of me that still loved him, that still held on to a small bit of hope that he could be the one for me. So after I went through my baggage release and self-love, I finally had the courage to see him. Actually, my coach helped me with that. And I learned that he's not the right guy for me. Like, I had to physically experience it again, experience the energy. And I saw that I'd changed in those last few months, and so had he, and we weren't on the right path. And I shared what I had to with him. Like, I was honest. I wasn't held back. A lot of women get stuck in our throat chakra. Okay. We don't express our truth. Okay. And what I really believe is that we have to be able to express our truth in an honest, compassionate way, right? You can be angry, but you can be compassionate at the same time.
Yeah.
And it has to be for the benefit of both of you, right? If someone really hurt you, let them know. And if there's something that you've hurt the other person, and trust me, I have hurt many people, then take responsibility for that too, right?
Yeah.
And then the fourth step is cutting the cord and releasing this person.
I like that. So you talked about the throat chakra. So how do you kind of identify, you said you identify with your clients different parts of your body. What are some common areas in our body that we hold these blocks that we should be releasing?
Yes, I love this question.
Yeah.
Well, we could be holding blocks in every energy center, and I'll just share really quickly what they are. In our head, we could just be holding a mental block about our own worthiness, and that is the main thing. Like 95% of our thoughts are negative and self-critical, especially for women. We have like this stepmother that's like, and so that's a huge block, because your thoughts are powerful, right? Everything that you think is sent out like information packets and creates your reality. And it also kind of aligns your whole body for your reality. So it's really important to heal this, okay? Then your third eye, which is your vision. A lot of us are crowded. Oh my God. A lot of us are clouded in our vision for what we want in our life. Like, we can only look 2 steps ahead of us. Like, okay, once I get that dream career at Google, and once I get married, I'm going to be totally happy. But you know what? That's not going to make you happy, because it may not be authentic for you, and it may not really be your vision. Like, if you could really dream big, what would you want your life to look like? Right? And then the third area that we get blocked is our throat. Like I said, we don't communicate our truth. I call it the doormat or the bitch syndromes within.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the fourth area is our heart. This is a big one. Okay. Many of us hold grievances, anger, resentment, all of that stuff in our heart. And it's a big one, because our heart is the most powerful organ in our body. Okay. The electromagnetic field of a heart is 40 times greater than that of the head. I forget the exact statistic. It's like the Heart Math Institute that studies the heart.
Yeah.
And a person can feel your heart in the next room. Wow. So if your heart is not open, people can feel it. And that's why I really focus on the heart.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And then I'll just quickly go through, there is the solar plexus, which is about power. Many women are like confused about power, and especially inside relationships. And so there's kind of like a recalibration of our sense of power and self. And then there's our sexual energy center, and that is about sexual trauma. Like, so many of us put up with a lot of sexual trauma, even in a relationship.
Of course.
You know, and shame. And then the last energy center is our root, which has to do with our foundation. It's like, do I deserve to be on this planet? And that one usually has to do with our parents and our childhood, you know, and that's another area that I really cover, which is, what were your parents' relationship like with each other? What were they like with you? And how do we heal that so that you don't feel like you're fragmented at your base? So those are the common blocks.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure my viewers and I mean myself, I found that very helpful as well. So what's the common, like the most common area you see that is the most difficult to release?
Yeah. I mean, the heart, right? The heart and the sexual areas, like both of those are really sacred to a woman. And I just, you know, I was recently working with an energy healer to help me ground and heal my lower areas, my chakras in the lower areas, because it's easy when we're in a very mind-based society, it's easy for us to not acknowledge our lower parts of our body. And as women, we really have to be connected to our womb, our sexuality, and also a lot of shame and guilt is held in the sexual chakra. And that's why that's an important energy center to heal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would think that it was the heart.
It's also the heart, you know.
Yeah. So what are some ways that you practice with your clients, and also that you've gone to an energy healer to help release, you know, these blocks?
Yeah. So I offer a step-by-step program which covers all of these areas, you know, and it's mostly about self-love and kind of self-development and releasing baggage, and creating a new possibility for a healthy relationship. Okay. So I have a 5-step process for it. The first step, like I said, is called be a love magnet, right? And the best way to be a love magnet is through self-love. And I teach how to do that on every level.
Yeah.
Then the second step is heal your heart and close your Xfiles. So that's the closing the Xfiles process that I was talking about.
Yeah.
And any family related, I call it the family blueprint stuff that arises. They say that 80% of our beliefs come from our childhood. So you can imagine if your parents didn't have a great relationship, what is that doing in your life? You know? The third step is about discovering your wow factor. So the wow factor for me is about connecting with your femininity, your sexuality, your purpose.
Your value, is that?
Your values, yes.
Okay, so your intentions and values.
Your intentions and values, exactly. And then the fourth step, I call it prepare for love. And so preparing for love is about relationship skills and learning the key skills to just start inviting love into your life, healthy relationships into your life.
Interesting.
Yeah, I call it like feng shui principles around love. Like imagine going to a restaurant that has an open door and has a table set. You want to go in, right?
Yeah.
We can do that energetically in our lives.
Interesting.
And then the last step is dating with confidence. And that's about how to date online and offline in a way that's healthy and conscious and joyful.
That's awesome. And I think it's so important to educate yourself on this. And this is why, you know, the Healing Heartbreak Summit is here too, is to educate you, because we don't go to school for this, let's be honest.
No, they don't teach us this.
Yeah. But if you can work on this and on yourselves and, you know, take the advice that Sarika gave today, answer the questions she gave you guys, and just really take action. And, you know, we're here for your support. You'll see that you like other parts of your life will also change. You'll be better at work. You'll be better at your gym class because you're happy within. And it sounds all woo-woo, but It's very true, I would say.
You know what? The results are so tangible. My clients glow. They start attracting opportunities like abundance. Their relationships with their family becomes better. Like there's just so much that opens up to you. And I know that all of this sounds woo, but it's really not. It's like, hey, if you're happy, guess what's going to happen in your life?
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah. And so with talking about like, changing your mindset and everything, can you kind of share with us like a small mindset activity or something you do with your clients to sort of rewire your brain to how you perceive things?
Sure. Well, this is a trick that I teach clients, which is it's kind of like a ninja trick on your negative thoughts. So let's say your negative thoughts start arising that I'm not good enough, right? No one loves me, that I'm too fat or I'm too whatever. Any of those thoughts that start arising, stop, breathe, and just say to yourself, okay, even though I think I'm fat, I still love, accept, and forgive myself. Even though I think I'm worthless, I still love, accept, and forgive myself. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And if you could do this for every thought now I know it's impossible for every thought, but just start injecting this every moment you can, right? You can also like do it with your feelings. Like, even though I still love my ex and I still think of him, I still love, accept, and forgive myself. Even though I feel heartbroken, I love, accept, and forgive myself. Just these 3 magic words will start rewiring you for happiness.
Yeah.
And I can't explain more except that that's what it does.
Yeah. It's that's kind of like with the mirror, activity where I've seen that you write your affirmations on the mirror, and I've actually done that, and I actually implemented that for a month, and I saw that you kind of build a habit and your brain gets wired to where if you think about something that's the opposite of that affirmation, the positive part of it comes back. So it kind of flips the negative thought to the positive thought immediately. And it's really weird, but that's how our brains work. So these activities exist for you guys to, and I mean, there's no pill to really cure this situation, but if you implement it over time, I'll bet you that, your brain will start changing and your thoughts and the way you perceive things will start changing.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to share I did for myself is I actually wrote a letter. So I had a hard time with like journaling and everything, but I wrote a letter and I characterized verbs. I said, myself and my self-love, like, will take the front seat of the car, but in the back seat will always sit my criticism, but I'll never let that criticism come and sit next to me in the front seat and drive. So I kind of like made a metaphor. So if you guys want to get creative like that and, characterize it as people, that helped me. And that's something and I read that letter all the time now. So get as detailed as possible and like keep a self-letter for yourself.
Love it. That's such a brilliant idea. And I think that's the power of going through a breakup is it's actually a time for creativity. Allowing your creative side to flow after a breakup is really important.
Yeah, that is. So again, thank you so much for, sharing your story and your advice. So a couple of last questions. So
sure.
One I want to ask is, what is your favorite kind of healing quote or pick me up that you always go to if you're feeling low and you just really need to, turn yourself back around? What do you do?
Sure.
It's like a ritual you have.
One really powerful quote, it's a very simple one by Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Buddhist monk. And it just says, no lotus, no mud. Sorry, no mud, no lotus. Okay. Without mud, there would be no lotus.
Oh, interesting.
And that's how I view heartbreak. It's mud that you kind of go through and you allow beauty to emerge from that.
Yeah.
The second one is one by Marianne Williamson. And I just love this quote. I always go back to it. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be?
I love that one. And I actually have that one myself. That's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really famous quote. I love it.
Yeah. And then other ones that I just keep remembering. There's one by Thich Nhat Hanh that says, breathe, my dear, and just breathing. Breathing is so important. Connecting with your breath.
So many of your clients have found new love and compatible partner in such a quick turnaround time. Yeah. So is the goal with your clientele to find that quickly, or how have you and them been able to just turn around so quickly?
Sure.
It's a wide question.
Yeah. So some of my clients meet a great guy within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes a year, so it really depends. But what I will say is that every client that I have worked with are just smart, self-aware women who want to be better people. So they say, Sarika, I just want to radiate. I want to radiate with joy. I want to be loving. I want to heal my relationships. And the next relationship I get into, I want it to be healthy. That's the purpose that they come to me. And I find that many of them, once they get into that mindset, they just start attracting great relationships. So I will share one or two examples. One of my clients, she started within a group program that I was running, and within the 5th month, she started exploring pleasure, kind of on her own, but kind of through the course as well. And she took a course on pleasure, and she met a man there. And within a month, they got engaged. And he is so right for her, and she wouldn't have been able to do that had she not healed from her past relationship. She started the course right after the end of a relationship, and had she not found her authentic self, had she not kind of grown into, she's only 26, 27, but she really grew as a person, and then she met this man, and he's 41, and they're really great together. They really love and respect each other. So who knows, sometimes crazy things happen.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, and it all comes down to, you being accountable and taking action. It's the bitter truth that no one really wants to hear, but I think that, until you pick yourself up from your bed and crying, and which is okay, do all that, but eventually you're going to have to pick yourself up and then seek for that support. But once you get that support, you'll be limitless. So that's my take on that.
Yeah. And as women, what I find, Vinny, is that we really feed off each other. It takes a circle of women, and sometimes a circle can just be 2 people. Sometimes it's 10. But it really takes a good group of women to support each other and see each other's greatness. Yeah. And allowing ourselves to be in that process. And so another thing that I share is that you are the sum average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So look at the people that you're spending time with. Look at your mentors. Look at your friends, and see, are they the 5 people that you want to be around as you gain, as you step into your limitless self? Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because I had to change my environment actually after my breakup, because you're so vulnerable at this state, and you have to accept that. And when you're vulnerable and you're surrounded by more negativity,
yes,
the negativity really seeps inside of you, and it does. It's kind of like a contagious sort of thing, this disease coming inside of you or something. But I noticed that happening. And so I decided to surround myself with more people that I wanted to be around, people that made me feel better, that made me more aware of who I was. And soon I was actually attracting that. So just, be honest with yourself. Are your friends, and I'm not saying like, let's stop being friends with your friends or something,
Right.
but just choose who you want to talk to your relationship about, and you'll find a great release in that. Even if it's just 1 hour a day, just choosing the right person to talk to about it, that 1 hour goes a long way versus 5 hours sitting in a room talking to friends who are not giving you the right advice.
Totally.
Yeah. So that's my take on that. But again, thank you so much, Sarika. And if my viewers are interested in checking out your stuff, where's the best place they can find you?
Sure. They can just go to my website, www.sarikajain.com, SarikaJain.com. And I have a love magnet quiz on there where you can find your goddess archetype and see the types of men that you're attracting, and some tips and tricks to align with your goddess self and attract relationships that you deserve.
Very cool. So check her stuff out if she helped you. And I will see you guys at the next interview. Thanks, everyone. Bye.